countdown.
Family Health Clinic. Let us all welcome Undersecretary for.
Good morning, ladies and gents. I'm Architect Luisa April D. Diastro, NREA National Trustee, and your host for today's event. Okay, we will start the program with a prayer to be led by Engineer Evelio Varona, President of NREA Ormoc Leyte Chapter, to be followed by the Philippine National Anthem.
Let us put ourselves in the presence of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty Father, our greatest mentor, as we are virtually meeting today in this forum entitled 2022 Real Estate Market Overview and Trends, we implore your divine providence to guide our hearts and minds for a very engaging discussion. Bless our resource speakers to impart their knowledge and expertise in real estate and economy. Father God, inspire and empower us, the participants, to echo the knowledge that we will learn from this online business meeting to people under our sphere of influence. Lord God, bless the entire proceedings so that no technical or other form of interruption will happen in this Zoom meeting. May the gains of this event contribute something towards the dream of achieving an inclusive economic growth in our country that we all aspire for. Finally, Almighty Father, we ask that through your intercession, this forum will reach its successful conclusion. All this we pray, Father, in Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NREA Online Business Meeting with this year's theme, 2022 Real Estate Market Overview and Trends. So it's an honor to be part of this organization and of this event. Welcome to all our board officers, trustees, and advisors, NREA members, our beloved speakers, our sponsors, and to all the guests. So NREA would like to thank our generous sponsors, OFW Party List, number 49, Ganzon Incorporated, Davis, SMDC, Forest Lake, Duraville Realty and Development Corp, the House Lands, and Festa Communities. On this part of the program, I would also like to introduce the NREA Board of Trustees and Officers and Board of Advisors. Let's start with our Board Chairman, Mr. Ricky M. Celis, our Board Vice Chair Lady, Imelda C. Magtoto, our National President, Ronnie Biado, Executive Vice President, Red J. Rosales, Vice President for Internal Affairs, Ferida W. Ataide, Vice President for External Affairs, Eduardo Sanchez Jr. Our Vice President for Chapters, Zenaida S. Fruto. Our Secretary General, Maria Isolde Flores Prado. Treasurer, Nicole Ann Marie Choa. Auditor, Ruth Marie Atienza. National PRO, Jeffrey Bongat. Education Chairman Trustee, Rodolfo Leonen. Trustee, Jovi Francis Tupas. Trustee, Maria Victoria O. Polisco. And yours truly, Trustee, Luisa Ann April D. Diastro. Our Board of Advisors, our Chair Emerita, the Chair Lady of the Board of Advisors, and the past President and past Chair Lady, Marisa Del Mar. Advisor, past President and past Chairman of NREA, Benigno T. Cabrieto Jr. Our past President and past Chairman of NREA, Architect Grace Layu. Past President and past Chairman, Architect Felino Calafox Jr. Past President and past Chairman, Architect Nestor Mangio. Past President and past Chairman NREA, Alejandro Maniala. Former member, PR Press Board, Vincent Choa, CPA, and Marcelino C. Mendoza, Advisor NREA. We would also like to introduce and acknowledge the NREA chapter presidents. So we have Metro CBD chapter, Mr. Kenneth Robo, Bulacan chapter, Mr. Dennis Sumo, Pampanga chapter, Mr. Archibald Baluyut, Pangasinan chapter, Mr. Romel Agasita, Baguio CAR chapter, Miss Alma Grace Sara, Bataan chapter, Miss Arminda Abalahon, Zambales chapter, Mr. Dave Lubong, Cavite chapter, Miss Sandy Coral, Tagaytay, Batangas chapter, Miss Rosa Maria Rias, Mindoro chapter, Attorney Erica Catarvas, our Mock Leyte chapter, Mr. Evelio Barona, Cebu chapter, Mr. Abundio Golpiano Jr., Iloilo chapter, Miss Annie B. Leon Sioco, Cagayan de Oro chapter, Miss Violazita Sun, Davao chapter, Miss Livia Pepino, Zamboanga chapter, Mr. Jeffy Baluran, and South Cotabato. Let me introduce also and acknowledge the NREA Secretariat. Our Executive Director, Aurora Pusum, Public Relations Officer, Virgilio Maclam, Executive Assistant and Event Officer, Lelien Santawana, Admin Assistant and Education Secretary, Eileen B. Garditos, Admin Secretary and Technical Specialist, Paul Santos, Accounting Officer, Maria Lourdes Angeles, and Liaison Officer, Bernardo Ejada. And this is an invitation to become a member for all those non-members. Join us now, and you can send your inquiries through the secretariat, and through the email nrea_org@yahoo.com and through the following numbers. So you can also inquire through our Facebook page, NREA Philippines, LinkedIn, NREA Philippines, and Twitter, and through Twitter. Okay. So as a member, NREA is offering a new normal rate. And also for all the licensed real estate practitioners who would like to avail of the PRC self-directed learning for CPD units, You can type your full name with your picture in the comment and take picture together with the ongoing NREA Business Forum and send it to NREA for certificate of attendance with a fee. And you can also inquire through the following numbers and send email to nrea_org@yahoo.com. Let me also remind everybody of the house rules to maintain in mute, and please turn off your camera. Only the MCs, moderators, officers, and speakers are allowed to use the microphone and camera to avoid program interruption. And we will have a part of the program which will be open for your questions. So we encourage you to type your questions in the chat box. And the moderators will assess and handle the questions after all the speakers have spoken. Okay, and again, welcome to this morning's event, the 2022 Real Estate Market Overview and Trends. We have distinguished guests, Mr. Peter Wallace and Dr. Bernardo Villegas, PhD. Okay, for the welcome remarks, it will be given by the National President of NREA. He is also the Principal Architect of RDRT Plus Design Studio, Evaluator, CBT Council for Architecture, PRC, Chapter President of UAP QC Electrical, Director, Committee on Continuing Professional Development, Administrative Faculty of Enderan Colleges, and a Professional Lecturer, National University. May I call on Architect Ronnie Viviando, National President.
Thank you, Architect April. So, good morning, everyone. Traditionally, it is during the early part of the year that we scan our economic and business environments for trends and, of course, for opportunities. The National Real Estate Association Incorporated, or NREA for short, of which I am privileged to have been elected as the national president, is doing just that. And this is our first business meeting online for the year. This is pursuant to NREA's commitment and responsibility to its members, as well as to kindred stakeholders in the real estate industry. This is in pursuit of NREA's passion and advocacy to optimize NREA members' business, thereby contribute in raising our fellow Filipinos' living condition as much as our country's economy in general. For this, NREA is privileged and honored to have as guests two business gurus whose economic insights are sought after and very much valued in our country. Among others, they are Mr. Peter Wallace and Dr. Bernardo Villegas, the latter whom many refer to as the so-called prophet of boom, quote and unquote. They will be properly introduced later. Even at this point, may I advance my appreciation to them for considering NREA as a forum in sharing their economic insights for 2022 and the near future. Let me also thank NREA members and others who are with us today, including our supporters and sponsors who will also be part of this activity. Without further ado, I now formally open today's forum. Again, this is Architect Ron Biando, wishing everyone a happy morning and please continue to be safe. Back to you, Architect April.
Thank you, Architect Ronnie Viando, our National President. To introduce our first topic and speaker, we have another architect. So this architect is, for a while, This architect got his BS architecture degree from University of Santo Tomas, 1988. Then he became a licensed architect in 1990. Since then, he had been in practice for 33 years. Teaching came into calling by the year 1995, where he entered the academic halls of the Institute of Architecture and Fine Arts in Far Eastern University, Manila, where he spent his teaching career for almost 20 years. After early retirement, he was invited to teach in the College of Architecture in National University, Manila campus, where he continues teaching for the last 5 years. He is balancing his time between academia, consultancy work in Makati and in Bataan. Also practicing as a licensed environmental planner for the last 10 years. Also a proud member of United Architects of the Philippines, PIEP, and lately NREA. May I call on Architect Paulo Manalansan, ENP, Professor, National University.
Thank you very much, Architect April. It is an honor for me to introduce our first speaker. He had been living in the Philippines for the past 47 years and has consequently become fully imbibed into the Philippine society. In 2016, Congress granted him and approved by the President the Philippine citizenship. Our speaker started his professional career as an electrical engineer and subsequently completed a course in business economics. In 1975, he was sent to Manila to build a factory manufacturing maintenance products. Then 3 years later, he accepted the position of chairman of a conglomerate, Colombian Philippines Incorporated, that manufactured rope, processed abaca, and also represented airline, shipping, and automotive companies, and also operated a laundry operation and was involved in processing food. Then on to being a CEO of Getz Corporation, the largest trading company at the time. He founded his own business, the Wallace Business Forum, in 1982, and the company that is in its 38th year of success of helping CEOs understand the business environment in the Philippines. He writes a weekly column in the Inquirer under the heading "Like It Is," and is also involved in a number of charitable endeavors. He is also, on a personal note, married to a Filipino wife, and at the same time dabbles in the so-called being a nautical sailor. He also took leisure in uh, traveling by his personal watercraft. So, with no further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Peter Wallace.
Thanks, Paolo. Good morning, everybody. Nice to be back with you again. We are already, amazingly, 6 weeks into our new year. It's almost like the year is practically over. Of course, this year is a monumental year for us because we're going to select a new president, a new vice president, a lot of senators and congressmen, and many, many other people. Complete change in government, and it's probably going to mean a complete change in many of the things we do. But I must admit that the one thing I most hope about is that the next president, whoever it is, continues the policies and programs that this president has introduced. Because on the economic business side, a lot has been done in the past 6 years to completely reform the business environment we're in and to make it a better, more competitive arena to be in. So I hope the next president will continue that. But let me get on to where we are. First chart. Last year, we saw considerable recovery, surprisingly, because we were in pretty much a lockdown much of the year. But that was principally because we had a very low base. We dropped 9.6% the previous year. So it meant the base we're building from is much lower, and we're just recovering back to where we were. And we're not yet back to where we were in 2019 and won't be until probably well into next year. So it's been beginning to be a gradual reopening. There's promising talk today of the government reopening for us in March, allowing us to go to level 1 in NCR, and we certainly hope that will happen because we need to be recovering. Throughout the world today, countries are realizing that they have to start to accept this pandemic and create it more as an endemic and learn to live with it, taking normal precautions, but learning to live with it, not the fear that we have experienced for the past 2 years. So it's given a lot of new opportunities. It's created a completely new world that we're living in. And I think we're only just beginning to see that. The shift into IT in all its facets has accelerated at an astronomical rate. What we expected would take 5, even 10 years to accomplish was accomplished in 2. We have gone into a digital world, a metaverse world that is being discussed today, where virtual will intermingle with physical, hardly knowing the difference between the two. We are not going to go back to the way we were. Hybrid work, working from home, working from the office will be the normal new standard for those who do office work. Factories, of course, will continue to do work, but factories and warehouses are more and more being roboticized and turned into automated operations. So it's a complete shift in what we're doing. We are now buying online. People are not going to the malls. They're going onto their computers and buying online. And we're paying with cryptocurrencies, and we're paying directly online. Cash is gradually disappearing. Less so in the Philippines yet, but eventually it will. Next. It's been a very difficult time for a number of industries. Hospitality and tourism, of course, and the airlines were particularly badly hit, devastated by the last 2 years. Their businesses, many of them closed down. Too many of them, unfortunately, will be permanently. But others did well. Fast food chains, for example, you can't go to a restaurant, so fast food order delivered by Uber, and you can eat at home. Pharmaceuticals, of course, because of the health issues that we've had to face. Communications, as we are today, right now on Zoom, this is communications that didn't exist 2 years ago, is now a common part of almost every day that we live. Logistics, getting products from one place to another has accelerated at an incredible rate. And now we are finding deliveries into our homes occurring within just a few days of ordering whatever we want. Electronics is also growing. We've had considerable difficulty in the past year or so on supply, particularly of the more exotic chips, where supply has not been able to keep up with demand. And we're having major logistical problems in shipping things from one place to another. Ports are overloaded, unable to handle the volumes, and a lot of shipping is taking time, much more time, to get to places than it did, and costing a lot more, 2 to 3 times what it used to cost to ship. But the government has put in place some major policy reforms that have radically changed the way in which we can do business and into our future. One of the most important for all of us, of course, has been the two bills, the train and create, firstly on our personal income tax and secondly on our corporate income tax, that have reduced those dramatically, made it much more profitable for us to stay in business, made it much more likely that we can stay in business. A very big shift. Next. Banking and finance has been adjusting in the last 2 years. They've been trying to recognize the need to shift into digital much quicker than they have been. and in the main have been doing so, but they've still got quite a long way to go. It did also mean, because of COVID, the loss of jobs, the loss of incomes, people were unable to pay their loans in many cases, and so non-performing loans have increased. But with the new law that now allows banks to transfer those to a special finance fintech company to handle them, that is being resolved and banks are getting back into a strong position. And the Philippine banking system is in a strong position. It's highly liquid, it's well structured, and it's a very secure banking system. Investments, we've still got a long way to go before we recover. I don't see business recovering quickly until we get back into the end of this year and we know who the next president is and what he's likely to do. But production capacity is reviving. We are getting back to full production, and that is helping us on exports as well, where demand is increasing now. On tourism and other non-essential industries, hotels, transport, etc., we are still weak and will be weak for some time yet. But we will see a revival of domestic activity, particularly. Foreign investment, foreign tourists coming in is likely to be a bit longer on, but I think we'll get much more local tourists traveling around the country. As I mentioned, we've got logistical bottlenecks and quarantine restrictions that have made it just difficult, supply problems that have made it difficult. And with oil prices today over 90 and the way things are going with Russia and Ukraine, not too likely to fall, we could be experiencing very high oil pressures for much of this year. And that, of course, will have an impact on inflation and on our ability to get around at a reasonable cost. We're just going to have to accept that oil products are going to cost more. Next. So where are we on the pandemic situation? Is this the end game? Is the latest variant the last one we're going to see, or will there be others? It does seem that this one, Omicron, is less virulent, less hurtful, but is much more virulent, much more easily contagious. And that in some ways is helping to create the herd immunity that may in fact protect us better into the future. But vaccination still essential to do, including a booster shot for those of you who have not done so yet. And we've gained experience. We're finding that governments and our government are better learning how to handle this and handle it and act more swiftly than they had in the past. And that in itself will help quite a lot. And our hospitals and clinics are also learning to cope better, although still overstretched on a number of occasions and a number of places. But if you read my column the other day where I actually had to have a hip replaced, I used a local hospital in Los Baños, and the performance was excellent. Very good doctors, very good nurses, efficiently run hospital. And I was surprised. I hadn't expected that in the provinces, but there we are. It's there, and I hope it is in many other places around the country as well. Next. So we're returning to a slower but still buoyant economy in 2022, but it will be a slow recovery. The pace of recovery in 2021 will slow a little bit this year as we try to adapt to and go from what is now a higher base. And as I mentioned, oil and commodity prices are going to be a major problem throughout the year. World trade, as you can see from this chart, will continue to grow quite strongly, but less so than last year. A slowdown throughout the world, and the following year, a further slowdown as economies recover and become more stable. Next. So what's our problem? Our problem is, of course, a new leadership. And that's a huge uncertainty. And it's going to impact on a number of areas in our economy. Our business investor confidence is going to depend very heavily on who wins. and what he or her policies and transparency, consistency, and reform orientation will be. I'm particularly worried here. We have, as you well know, Bongbong Marcos is way ahead at the moment and looks destined to be the next president. But we're still almost 3 months, 85 days away from our elections. And as we've seen in previous elections, a lot can change in those 85 days. So he's not assured yet. My concern is, what kind of president will he be? Will he be a president who puts in place experts, people who know the job, cabinet secretaries who have the experience and expertise to handle things well? Or will he put cronies and friends and relatives? And to me, that's one of the key issues that needs to be understood when he takes over, if he does. I would like to hope that he and the other presidentiables would announce today who their economic team is, so we can be somewhat reassured of what we can expect from them if one of them wins. So it's not over yet, but the uncertainty does mean we won't get much foreign investment in the next few months. No one's going to invest in a country where a change of government, which could be massive and could lead to all kinds of differences, is going to risk their money. And we won't see it for much of the rest of the year either, because they'll want to see how, in fact, that new president does act, what he does, what policies he puts in place, what kind of people he has around him. The other area the next leader must look after very carefully is government finances. We were in very good shape prior to the pandemic. The Philippines was very strong on its international reserves, very strong on its balance of payments, very strong in its fiscal position and its monetary position. Pandemic has upset all of that, as it has throughout the world. And we've gone into debt to about a bit over 60% of GDP today, which is right on the limit of what's an acceptable number. But through very good control of the Department of Finance, Sonny Dominguez particularly, and Carl Chua, Ben Giocno, these people have been able to exert very good control, still allow money to get to where it's needed, to help people that are most in need, without taking us into uncontrollable debt. So the next president has a difficult situation, not impossible. It's on the balance. It needs to be carefully monitored and carefully controlled. So having the right people there will be very, very important. Next. But overall, we have macroeconomic stability, and I think that's the most important thing. Over the last few presidents, we have gradually built up a fairly strong fundamental economic condition for the country. And that has been undisturbed in the main by what COVID has done to us, and will be able to be recovered. And so the right kind of president, putting in place the right policies, and most importantly, continuing what we have already, we should be in reasonably good shape. So as I mentioned, it'll be 2023 before we really see what kind of leader we have and what we can expect from him. So let's hope we get a good leader who puts in place a good cabinet. Next. We will, of course, in the next few months, see incredible and amazing increase in the spending domestically for campaigning. That's always been the case. An awful lot of money goes out into the country. But a lot of it will be in a different form this time. The caravans, the fiestas, the parades, they're going to be far less. What we're going to see far more of is media attention. Social media, TikTok, YouTube, all those other things that I know nothing about, they are where people are getting a lot of their information today. But TV and radio still remain the biggest. TV particularly, but particularly out in the provinces, in the more remote areas, radio is still a major input for information for people. And so we've seen a digital shift, if you like, into how campaigning is done, how presidentiables try to appeal to the people, particularly the young. We're about 35 million, about 66 million are young people below the age of 40. Below the age of 40, because 40 is about the time when all of those people, 0 to 40, have no real experience of the previous Marcos dictatorship, and they have been given a story which is quite different to what we think is the actual thing that happened while we were here at that time. So they are a major part of why Marcos Jr. has such a large following today. Next. So the major drivers for this year are going to be the budget, which is already in place, over 5 trillion pesos, which is up 12% from last year. It's a strong, fairly well-oriented budget. The usual complaints about favoritisms, etc., but in the main, fairly well balanced. We should also be hoping for a herd immunity, which is over 70% of our population vaccinated throughout the year, and that everybody that can has a booster shot to help on that herd immunity. We expect global recovery to continue, but at a slightly slower pace. Where we face risks is that if the money is not available, we get a cut in infrastructure. This would be a shame. The build was one of the best things that this government has done, has revolutionized the way we are. We were so far behind on infrastructure. We have so far to catch up. And here we are doing that catch up now. So let us hope that the money will be there. Let's hope we all pay our taxes, everybody, including the big guys at the top, and we have the money to be able to continue to build, because it is a fundamental necessity for us. Let's hope also that we don't get another lockdown with another variant. And for me, the biggest risk is getting the wrong president. Somebody who doesn't really understand how to run the country and doesn't care for the country, but for themselves. Next. I think business is going to play an ever bigger role with government. We've seen that throughout this government. More and more, it has recognized that bringing business into partnership with many of the projects they're doing, with many of the areas they're operating in, makes good sense. And I think we will see that continue to happen. But it'll still be government that leads the recovery, because it's growing, is expected to grow at least 10% on its BBP. And as I said, let's hope that the money will be there to do that. Exports, we will also see fairly good growth, given that the growth in the world is continuing. We will see export demand continuing as well. Biggest problem here will be supply of raw materials at a reasonable cost that can keep us competitive. Next. As I mentioned, investment will grow only moderately because of the uncertainty during this period till elections, and after that until there's some certainty as to the new president and the policies that they will be putting into place. The industrial sector will continue to lead with production, particularly on the growing. We've got a fairly good production base today, but it does need a much greater expansion. And with the new laws in place, getting more foreign investment in to help us, I think will happen as we move into the following year from now. Where we are seeing some considerable growth is consumer spending, but as I mentioned, shifting more to online. We're seeing people buying clothes, also I'm not sure why, we're all wearing t-shirts and shorts these days. Personal care products are seeing some growth, and of course, health items. So we expect that retail and services will recover. Hotels, transport, tourism begin to show signs of life. But as I said, it will be mostly locals rather than foreigners, at least for the major part of this part of the year. Agriculture, where we still have enormous problems. Agriculture bothers me a lot. we should be a leader in agriculture. We have the climate, we have the soil, we have the land available, we have the water, we have the ingredients to have a successful agricultural sector, and yet we have one of the worst in Asia. We are uncompetitive in almost all crops. We've had bad policies, bad ideas on how to run agriculture, and we haven't really had leaders that really understood agriculture and gave it the priority it needs. That would be good to happen, but I don't see in this crop of candidates anyone who also has that same priority knowledge, if you like, about agriculture and how to bring it up to a competitive status in the world, because that's where it has to be. The RCEP, the Regional Cooperation Agreement of 17 countries, is something we must join. Agriculture is worried about that because they don't think they're ready to compete. I don't agree. I think they can be, and I think by joining RCEP, that will help to accelerate them into becoming competitive. So this is one area we need to improve greatly. Next. So we're forecasting between 6 and 8%. That's a very wide range. You generally find, and it amuses me actually on estimates, that economists forecast to the nearest decimal place. And so we'll see someone say 5.6 and others will say 5.5, as though there was any difference. And of course, there's no significant difference. And anyway, it's only an estimate. We are wide deliberately because we don't know what kind of president we're going to get. If it's the wrong kind of president, we're going to have 6% growth at best. If it's the right kind of president, we can be achieving 8 and possibly even more a year or two down the road. It's not impossible. So the wide range is very dependent on who will be the next leader of this country. Next. As I said, world economic recovery will be continuing, but slowing. And as the crisis ebbs and we get back to a more normal situation, we should see policies changing to be more stable and more adaptable. The new leadership will matter on investor confidence, as I've mentioned, the quality of government spending, very important, will, as we've had for far too long, too much of it go into corruption, into fraud, into theft from the government coffers? Or will we actually get a president who steps in and cracks down on the corruption, including on the big people, not just the little guys? And importantly, will be revenue collection. Can we get the taxes that are needed? Can we get people to pay the taxes? Will their businesses be successful enough to be able to pay it? Because this is going to have an effect on job creation, on inflation, interest rates, Philippine credit, just about everything depends upon government getting strong collections this coming year. Next. So what I see is two different kinds of leaders: the weak leader, a strong leader. And I won't go through it all. You can pick this up later if you like. But in the main thing is the one at the top. We either have an economy run by cronies, a lack of and weak implementations of reforms, and high levels of corruption, or one run by capable technocrats with the previous gains sustained, with continuity of previous policies made, and reforms continue, are even enforced and become more effective. So it's two huge differences in the kind of leader. And we're pretty much looking at which way will that go. We don't know at this point. Next. So that shows you how, in fact, we do have a very different GDP growth, very widely different depending on the kind of leader. Next. So this summarizes where we see economic growth in the next 2 years. And essentially what you can see here is that the fairly strong growth that occurred in 2021 will continue in 2022, and will continue beyond that into 2023, but slowing down a bit on almost all factors, and in the main, mostly because the base effect is now higher. We are now coming from a more stable, a higher level base, and so the growth rate inevitably just slows a little. Also, exports will be exceeding imports by quite a bit. Imports will be exceeding exports by quite a bit. And as imports are a negative on GDP, exports are positive, we have a net negative impacting on GDP, reducing its actual growth a little bit, where it's not really reducing it because those imports are good for the economy and strengthening the economy. So it's a kind of a monetary strange thing to do. Next, one of the ones that worries you a lot, of course, inflation. It is coming down. There's no question about that. It's coming down around the world from an extremely high 7.5% in the US at the moment. That's expected to decline as it is elsewhere in Europe and the rest of the world. And it will have the impact here too. One of the major impacts last year was the Asian swine flu, the typhoons that hit us, hurt agriculture. These sent food prices up considerably. Oil, as I mentioned, has gone up. That's going to continue, unfortunately, but it's already at that level, so it doesn't have as much an impact on the increase in inflation as it might otherwise do. And we should see a possible end to monetary relaxation in the second half, so that will keep price increases under control. So what we're looking at is somewhere between 2 and 4%, and then a little bit, again, much depending on the kind of leader that we have. Next. Cost of business, we expect the exchange rate to slowly depreciate in the main because of the higher import demand compared to exports. But we do have the OFWs, we do have the BPM, the IT BPM, bringing in considerable amount of dollars to offset the cost of having to pay for imports. So the decline will be relatively minor and fairly slow. We don't expect any sudden jump down in the cost of business. Next. Interest rates, again, will remain low. They've been well controlled over the past few years. Ben Giorno, Central Bank Governor of the Year, has done an excellent job in running the BSP, and we do have interest rates under control and at a level that we can reasonably afford and that are helping to stimulate business and the recovery of the country by making it affordable to have interest rates. That, I think, is it. Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you into the future. Thank you.
Tinuturing po natin na bagong bayani ang ating mga OFW or Overseas Filipino Workers. Ang remittances na pumapasok sa ating bansa kada taon ay maabot ng 211.9 billion pesos noong 2019 mula sa ating mga mahal na OFWs. Ngunit kahit maganda ang hangarin sa pag-alis ng bansa, marami pa rin po ang nakararanas ng human trafficking. 10 million po ang Pilipinong biktima ng human trafficking, maging lalaki, babae at mga kabataan. Ito po ay kumikita na 150 billion US dollars para sa mga human trafficking perpetrators. Ang OFW Party List po ay inyong masasandalan sa panahon ng pangangailangan. Ang inyong kapatid, kakampi at kaibigan sa lahat ng mga manggagawang Pilipino sa buong mundo. Number 49, OFW Party List. Ito po ang inyong ate, Marisa Dalmar.
Thank you to our generous sponsors. And we would also like to acknowledge the presence of our special guest, the TSUD Undersecretary Marilyn Pintor, TSUD Ryan Otulio, TSUD Anuel Bautista, UAP Chancellor Corazon Tendok of College of Fellows, participants from NEDA, Ms. Dulce Paloma and Casey Tapnio, participants from LGU Makati, participants from LGU Quirino Province, and participants from NREA. Okay, and thank you as well to our first presenter, speaker, Mr. Peter Wallace. We hope we can feel the effect of the economic recovery in the next few years. So we are also reminded that a good leader will also be good to our economy as well. Okay, and to introduce our second special guest and speaker, we have Ms. Jennifer Mendoza. Ms. Jennifer Mendoza is the President and General Manager of GenN Management Incorporated, a firm that offers construction and project management services in Baguio City and nearby provinces. Her experiences range from management, sales, and being a speaker of various workshops and trainings wherein she was invited to be a speaker for NREA's activity last July 14, 2018. She's also active in sports, which gives her the on-the-go attitude. So let's welcome all the way from Baguio City, Ms. Jennifer G. Mendoza, the President of GenN Engineering.
Thank you very much for the short introduction, Architect April. So I would like to correct, I'm not an architect, no. So I'm just Miss Jennifer Mendoza. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm honored to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Bernardo M. Villegas, PhD. Dr. Bernardo Malvar Villegas is a visiting professor of IESE Business School in Barcelona, professor at the University of Asia and the Pacific, and the research director of the Center for Research and Communication Manila. He has a PhD in economics from Harvard University in 1963 and is a certified public accountant, having been one of the CPA board top-notchers. He obtained bachelor's degree in commerce and the humanities, both summa cum laude, from De La Salle University, where he established a record by obtaining straight A's in the Liacum course, a 5-year program he finished in just 4 years. At Harvard at the age of 21, he was one of the youngest ever to be a teaching fellow in the College of Arts and Sciences. His special fields of study are development economics, social economics, business economics, and strategic management. He is the author of several economic books, textbooks, widely used in the Philippine schools and universities. He has also written a number of management bestsellers like The Philippine Advantage, Book of Virtues and Values, Productivity Path to Global Competitiveness, The Filipino Phenomenon, The Philippines at the Threshold of the Third Millennium, and the Positive Dimensions of Population Growth. He has received several prestigious awards such as the 10 Outstanding Young Men in 1972, Fulbright Johnson Foundation, Asia Foundation, and the Instituto de Cultura Hispanica. He is currently a member of the board of directors or advisory boards of leading national and multinational firms, such as the Bingit Corporation, Alaska Corporation, Finma Property Holding Corporation, AES, and Transnational Diversified. He served in the boards of Bank of the Philippine Islands, Globe Telecom, Insular Life, McDonald's, and IBM. He is a consultant on management development and strategic planning for numerous leading firms, operating in the Philippines and Asia Pacific. He has served in the boards of leading non-governmental organizations like the Manila Business Club, Pilipinas Shell Foundation, FINMA Foundation, the Parents for Education Foundation, and the Dual Tech Foundation. Through his work at the University of Asia and the Pacific and the Center for Research and Communication, he is often asked to give advice to top government officials in many policy issues, especially in industrial policy and countryside development. He was a member of the Constitutional Commission that drafted the Philippine Constitution under the government of former President Corazon Aquino. He is very often on road shows, briefing international audiences on the Philippines and the Asia Pacific region. In July 1992, Dr. Villegas was appointed member of the Council of Economic Advisors of President Fidel Ramos. In July 1998, he was asked by President Joseph Estrada to help promote the Philippines among local and foreign investors. Under the administration of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, he served as a private sector representative in the boards of National Development Corporation and the Philippine Infrastructure Corporation. Under the administration of President Benigno Aquino III, he helped government agencies both at the national and local levels to promote investments in the Philippines. He will continue promoting investments in the Philippines under the Duterte administration, especially in the regions outside the National Capital Region. He served in the Pacific Board of Economics of Time Magazine and writes regularly for both local and international newspaper such as the International Herald Tribune and the Asian Wall Street Journal. So friends, NREA Board of Trustees and Officers and Board of Advisors, members, ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome our next speaker, Dr. Bernardo M. Villegas.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mendoza, for your very kind words. We have received a very comprehensive presentation from my colleague, Peter Wallace. And let me just tell Peter, who's a good friend of mine, that I've been praying for his full recovery from that freak accident that he had.
Thank you, Bernie. Bernie
Yes.
is my mentor. He was my teacher at UANP.
Yes, we're very proud of Peter
That's
as
what-
one of our first products. Yes.
Yes, it was one of the early days.
Instead of repeating the data is presented, and most of those data really coincide with what I presented in my PowerPoint presentation, I think the value added that I can contribute would be a more medium-term outlook for real estate. I'd say real estate investments are always done medium to long term, and therefore probably I'll make comments more relevant to the next 5, even 10 years than the short run. Although the short run definitely, as Peter emphasized, is of great critical importance depending on the decisions that are made on May 9 of this year. But first, let me add to what he had said about seeing over at least the last 20 to 30 years, the practice of presidents, no matter what their weaknesses, limitations, and strengths might have been, of always appointing to critical positions, especially in the areas of finance and economic, like Central Bank, NEDA, DTI, DPWH. They always appointed, whatever their limitations were as political leaders, people among the best and the brightest. And I've seen this, I've watched from the outside the decisions that were being made by those economic technocrats. And I must say that slowly but surely we have built strong institutions in the area of finance and economics. The most well-known about these institutions is the central bank. As Peter said, our central bank governor has been declared as the best central governor in the world, and that's the first time. Other central bank governors were cited constantly as some of the best. And you can see also under the Duterte administration, no matter the reservation some of us may have about the type of political leadership he manifested, and the evidence that I present, defending the statement that I will make, differing a little from what Peter said. Whoever we elect on May 9th this year, GDP will continue to grow at 6 to 7%. And the immediate evidence I want to cite is that from 2011 to 2019, a period that was shared by Noynoy and by Duterte, without fail, during that period, our GDP was growing at 6 to 7%. No matter what the differences were in governance, in knowledge of the economy, and so on and so forth, of the two presidents, because both of them appointed some of the best and the brightest, as were done for the last 30 years, starting with Cory. And even under NREA, very short-lived presidency, we had some of the best and the brightest leading these economic institutions. And so that is why I can say with a lot of confidence that whoever is elected will continue the practice of choosing the best and the brightest. I don't think any one of them will appoint cronies for Department of Finance, DTI, and so on and so forth. And obviously, they're going to touch the central bank because Governor Jokno has said another 2 years. So, but am I saying that it makes no difference whom we elect? Of course it does, because if we elect the right president who will be outstanding for good governance, who will not have the leakages in corruption that we have seen even in this present administration, our GDP will grow at 8 to 10% under an honest government. But I present the fact that 6 to 7% is not something to be belittled in the Indo-Pacific region. Even at 6 to 7%, we will be one of the highest growing economies in this part of the world, thanks to our large domestic market, thanks to our young, growing, and English-speaking population, thanks to the fundamentals that we have already built that cannot be reversed, even by the wrong president. And that is why probably I differ from Peter as regards what he's saying about investors. I think investors must already start investing because 6 to 7% is not something that they should belittle. Now, obviously, if the right president is elected, then we may see even a much bigger amount of investments, including foreign direct investments, because one of the positive moves that the Duterte administration will be remembered for is they're finally amending the Public Service Act, which now allows a lot more investments of foreigners in telecom, in transport, in all of those major infrastructures that we need to support Industrial Revolution 4.0. And in fact, one figure that I will add to what Peter presented is that in the height of the pandemic in 2021, our foreign direct investments reached close to $10 billion. That's quite a feat. And that is why, with the amendment of the Public Service Act, I expect, for example, in 2022, if the investors will listen to my plea, that they should not really postpone making investments until they know who the president is and to still watch he will be doing. Because as I said, whoever he is and whatever he does, 6 to 7% is guaranteed, not only for 2022, but at least for the next 5 and even 10 years. And if the right president is elected, 8 to 10%. And I will show why that is possible. In fact, I will show you that the Philippines is at a stage where we are evolving from a low middle income economy to an upper middle income economy. We are at the stage where China was during the time of Deng Xiaoping in the 70s, or where India was during the time of Manmohan Singh in the early 90s. And if you take a look at how these two giant economies did during that period, China from 1978 for the next 10 and even 12 years grew at 12 to 14%. The same thing in India. India was growing in the 90s at 10 to 12%. So 8 to 10% for the Philippines is not something unachievable if we elect the right president. But if not, if there are going to be leakages like Farmally, the wrong people buying, some of our oil assets, etc., as we have seen in this present administration, then the 6% to 7% is doable. Now, let me now present why I consider the Philippine economy having strong foundations after 30 years of efforts of building institutions. The first asset we have is what I refer to as our geographical dividend. Please, first slide. This gives us a tremendous advantage within the Indo-Pacific region. People used to refer to our area as Asia-Pacific, but we cannot possibly ignore India. And I just want to remind you of the fact that the last century used to be referred to as the American century. And there was no doubt in the last century, America was on top of the world politically, economically, militarily. From time to time, EU and Japan challenged the leadership of the US. They did not succeed, especially Japan. In fact, there was a time in the last century that some people thought that Japan would surpass the US in economic power. Japan never did, because Japan started to age so rapidly that they could no longer grow as they were growing before. If you take a look at what was happening to the so-called American century countries, US, Eurozone, and Japan before the pandemic, take a look at their growth rates. Japan 0.8, Eurozone 1.8, the US 2.9. And as we already saw in what Peter presented, once things normalize after the pandemic, these growth rates will again prevail. First of all, because the per capita incomes are already super high. The US $40,000, most of them between $30,000 to $40,000. Just for comparison, ours is $4,000. So you cannot grow too much at those levels. And secondly, the Eurozone and Japan are suffering from demographic suicide. Their fertility rates are so low that they are challenged by their aging population, not having enough young people to take care of them and the economy. And that is why there will always be a tremendous demand for Filipino overseas workers, which is going to be a permanent institution in the global economy. I don't think the world will be able to survive without our millions of Filipino workers, helping them overcome their demographic crisis. Now take a look at how we were growing before the pandemic, we in the so-called Indo-Pacific region. The ASEAN was growing at 5.2, and as we know, we were above average. We were growing at 67%. India at 7.1%, and China already had slowed down to 6.6%, primarily because of their aging problem. I'm sure you know from the press that over the last 5 years, China has been frantically trying to tell their couples, please have 2 children, then 3 children, absolutely no impact. Exactly what happened to Singapore when they were trying to reverse their fertility rate. And that is why China, over the long term, will actually be surpassed by India in population and even in economic growth. Next, please. I just want to remind you, especially for those of you who have been around for some time, that more than 10 years ago, the initials BRIC was very fashionable. Brazil, Russia, India, China. This was coined by an economist from Goldman Sachs by the name of Jim O'Deal. And according to him, this was more than 10 years ago, this century will be led by these 4 emerging markets: Brazil, Russia, India, China. But just to demonstrate that economists can also be wrong, Brazil and Russia fell along the way because they mismanaged their respective economies. Now, no one is enthusiastic about Brazil and Russia. India and China remain, and now we have to add the ASEAN Economic Community, a very dynamic union of 10 countries. For a while, they were adding South Africa for political correctness, but if you take a look at the figures, really without belittling the people of South Africa, but their figures really don't belong to this club. And unfortunately, for South Africa, that country today is in a political turmoil. Next, please. The same economists added 11 engines of growth, which are still very relevant today. These are still very attractive emerging markets: Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, South Korea, Turkey, and Vietnam. But note that in the ASEAN Economic Community, there are only 3 of us who are included here. Because these 3, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines, have the largest domestic markets in terms of population. And fortunately for them, they have had basic economic reforms that attract investors, especially Vietnam. Vietnam has had twice our foreign direct investments now for some years because Vietnam has been very open to FDIs, more than we have been, until, of course, we amended the Public Service Act. And hopefully, we will be able now to compete with Vietnam for FDI, especially those that are leaving China and transferring to Southeast Asia. I'm optimistic that little by little, we can reach the figures of $15 billion of FDAs that Vietnam has been reaching now for the last 5 years, as long as we keep our economy open in those areas that were cited by the amended Public Service Act. Next, please. This came just before the pandemic. I'm presenting to you information from outside think tanks and institutions, and not from local government or even private agencies because anything that comes to the Philippines may be suspected as self-serving. But these types of think tanks like the Oxford Economics Group has no reason to say something nice about the Philippines, except for the fact that they see strong fundamentals. And take a look at the ranking. They'll make in October 2019, Oxford Economics said that the 10 leading emerging markets that will dominate the global economy in the next decade are number 1, India, number 2, the Philippines, number 3, Indonesia, number 4, China, and so on and so forth. The Philippines was able to surpass both Indonesia and China because they saw in us enough strong institutions, and especially the number 1 asset, a young, growing, and English-speaking population, which over and above the overseas workers who will be with us, as I said, for the indefinite future, you have already a sector cited by Peter, the IT BPO sector. That this year, last year, contributed $26 billion in earnings and is expected this year to grow at another 5%. And I just briefed their association yesterday, and the outlook for BPO IT is very bright as the world recovers, because we demonstrated to these enterprises that during the pandemic, we were very quick to adapt to whatever circumstances, adverse circumstances resulted from the pandemic, even better than India. And so they will have greater confidence in the Philippines being to service their needs in the future as the economy of the world recovers. Next, please. Another very recent forecast. This was made by the Center for Economic and Business Research in London, so another UK think tank. And take a look at the forecast that they made from 2020 to 2035. The Philippines improved in ranking in their forecast from rank 32 to rank 22, the most improved in this 15 years. Again, there must be something very positive about the Philippines. And I will enumerate those fundamentals that are actually the basis for these outside think tanks institutions to think highly of our economy. Even if they see that we have many poor marks, like in the ease of doing business, we rank very low. In certain political rankings, like human rights violations and so on and so forth, especially under the Duterte administration, we rank very low. There's so many defects of the Philippines, which are very broadly disseminated by think tanks from all over the world. Despite all of those disadvantages that the Philippines has in comparison, and I'm sure those of you who read the business world see almost every day on their front page those types of rankings coming from different think tanks. And in many of them, we rank very low. But in areas that have to do with finance and economics, they think highly of us. And that is why I am very confident that in the medium term, the Philippine economy will attract both domestic investors as well as foreign direct investors. Next, please. Here, the weekly economic publication, The Economist, that I'm sure many of you read, came out in May 2020, already at the height of the pandemic, with a list of the selected emerging economies ranked on 4 measures of financial strength. And take a look at what they say about the Philippines. We are number 6, and in Indo-Pacific, we are surpassed only by Taiwan and by South Korea. And take a look at the countries that we surpass in financial strength. Thailand, Saudi Arabia, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, India. This is according to The Economist, whose opinion about economic matters is highly regarded all over the world. Again, a completely independent assessment of how our economy is doing. Next, please. The longest forecast ever made was by Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, that used to call us very often until about the second decade of this century, the sick man of Asia. I would read HSBC report and we were referred to as the sick man of Asia. But suddenly at the beginning of the second decade of this century, they changed their tune. And take a look at what they say about 2050. The Philippines will be the 16th largest economy in the world in 2050. And take a look at the countries we will surpass. Indonesia has more than twice our population. So for us to have a bigger GDP than Indonesia means that our per capita income will be much, much higher than Indonesia. Then of course, Australia, Argentina. So very strong economies that we will surpass in 2050, according to an independent international bank, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. Next, please. Now, this was before the pandemic. We had a very high credit rating from the Japan Credit Rating Agency. We were upgraded from a BBB plus to A minus because, as Peter already mentioned, in the past, for more than 10 years, we showed to the world that we are very fiscally responsible. Our debt to GDP ratio was kept below 30%, which was very outstanding because, for your information, there are countries like Japan, the US, Italy, Spain, whose debt to GDP ratios can be anywhere from 100% to 150%. So having kept our debt to GDP ratio 30% was an outstanding accomplishment. Now, as Peter mentioned, because of trillions of pesos we had to borrow to address the pandemic, that ratio has gone to 60% or more. And that's already a dangerous level to be at, which means our credit rating is now down again, probably to BBB plus or less. What is the implication? We will not be able to borrow too much in the next administration. And as Peter emphasized, we have to make sure that the administration is going to be very good in collecting taxes to be able to continue the build program. But as I said, if they open up to all the very strategic infrastructures that are needed for Industrial Revolution 4.0, transport, telecom, and so on and so forth, then we can continue the build using foreign capital. And that is why I say that amendment of the PSA was very timely, because our government will be hard put to collect enough revenues to cover those infrastructures that are needed for our Industrial Revolution 4.0. They can continue, of course, with roads, especially in the countryside, especially for agriculture, farm-to-market roads. That's what the government has to spend on in the next administration. And let me say again, something very positive about the Duterte administration. I've been very impressed with what Mark Villar and company did during their tenure. They used practically all of the budget of the government for infrastructure, not in Metro Manila or Metro Cebu, but in the countryside. For those of you who travel, you will see how much improved are roads in the countryside, because that was their idea. Their idea was if Manila and Cebu want to have better highways, linkages, skyways and now subways. Let Ramon Ang, Manny Pangilinan, Ricky Rason, DMCI, Megawide do all of this. And I think that was a very good division of labor. That anything that is focused on urban areas like Metro Manila should really be through public-private partnership, and that the government money for infrastructure should be invested in what we have neglected for decades in the countryside. And I think that is something very positive that we should point out about the Duterte administration. Next, please. So let me just summarize what I've been saying about what are our fundamentals, which will continue whoever is the next president. For example, the next president cannot arrest our young, growing English-speaking population, no matter what he does, even if there is corruption. I hope not. We will still have young, growing, and English-speaking population, which will keep our OFWs a very vibrant sector and our IT BPO sector very attractive, earning, I'm sure, in the next 10 years, over $40 billion. That's the forecast that I saw with the institute, with the Association of BPO that I addressed yesterday. I already mentioned the graphic dividend, and Peter alluded to the RCEP. I think sooner or later, we have to be part of the RCEP. I sympathize with the farmers who say, you have neglected us and you haven't yet made up for previous negligence, so you still have to continue protecting us. That's their argument. But as Peter said, that's not really a valid argument anymore. They just have to make sure that the next administration will really deliver all the help that they need to be productive. But we have to be a part of our CEP. Sorry. Because we will be like a leper in this region with all of our neighbors benefiting from closer trade and closer investments, relations. And we will be increasingly really out of this important, most dynamic region in the world for at least the next 10 years. Let me explain this third one, which is not usually referred to, temporal dividend. So those of you who studied economics in the, let's say, principles level, let's say in UP, it was called Economics 11 or Economics 101. I'm sure you would remember a phrase called Engels' law, a German economist who postulated that as a family, as a community, transitions from poor to low middle income to upper middle income, the percentage of its income that it spends on basic things like rice, vegetables, and so on and so forth will decline significantly. And more of its income will be spent on a host of industrial goods and services. And that's exactly the period we're entering between now and 20 years from now. We're now entering that range of income in which there will be an explosion of demand for all types of goods, more sophisticated in all the possible consumer items you can think of. And that is why our economy will be driven mostly by consumption expenditure. Of course, supplemented by investment, but it will always be 70% of our GDP will be accounted for by consumption, but no longer consumption of very basic things, but consumption of all types of more sophisticated products. And that is why we will be very attractive to foreign investors, even just for our large domestic market, which is now what, 110 million people, and will actually expand to 150 million people over the next 20 years. And increasingly with middle income purchasing power. And that is why the centennials and the millennials were born at the right time. They will now live their adulthood during this period when the Philippines is transitioning to this very productive period for consumption. And that's why, just as an aside, if some of you are thinking, some of you who are doing well are still thinking of going to Canada, as I'm sure you've read from that article, and they were asked, you're not doing poorly in the Philippines, why are you going to Canada? And their answer typically is, we're doing it for our children. Well, you don't have to move to Canada because your children and your grandchildren will be facing a very attractive economy in the next 10 to 20 years in the Philippines. I'm definitely not saying anything negative about those who have gone to Canada. I have siblings who migrated to Canada, and now I have so many nephews and nieces there, and they're doing very well. But I am now saying the Philippines will also be good for your children and your grandchildren in the next 20 years. We have abundant natural resources. As you probably noticed, mining is now earning a lot thanks to the very high prices of copper, nickel, and so on and so forth. And fortunately, also, something positive about the Duterte administration, they have reversed the very negative view that the former administration had towards mining. We need not go into details. May she rest in peace, but you know that the minister then of energy or mining was very negative about the mining sector. Build, definitely a very positive thing about this present government, but something that has to be continued at least for the next 10 to 15 years. Our infrastructures, no matter what we have done so far, are still so way behind the quality of our neighbors. And so it's going to be a long time before we can catch up with the likes of Taiwan, South Korea, China, and even Thailand and Vietnam have higher quality infrastructures. And that is why we have to just persevere in the build program, with the government having its concentration on the countryside, and then our getting a lot of foreign direct investments in the areas that have to do with the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Now, let me cite something very relevant to your industry, real estate. Another very positive trend that was accelerated by the pandemic is the movement out of Metro Manila towards Calabar Zone, especially the province of Batangas. Public disclosure, I come from Batangas, but I'm talking about facts. If you take a look at all the industries and all the industrial zones that are being developed in that corridor from Calamba to the Batangas port, that's where the action will be in terms of real estate development. Then the other, as you very well know, I think I'm preaching to the choir, is Central Luzon, especially the so-called Pampanga Triangle, San Fernando, Angeles, Clark Subic, and you can now add Bulacan because of the major investment of Ramon Ang in the airport. So those are the areas in which real estate appreciation will be highest. Actually, right now, I'm sure you're already seeing the appreciation going on. And as those projects are completed, that's where real estate will be most attractive. In the Visayas, it's Iloilo, and especially as they complete that bridge between Iloilo to Guimaras all the way to Bacolod. That's no longer just a dream. That's already actually very much part of the DPWH program. You will have two cities, Bacolod and Iloilo, really merging into a unified metropolis, passing through Guimaras, which is very attractive for tourism. So that is an area where real estate appreciation will be highest in the Visayas. Cebu is already congested like Metro Manila. And in Mindanao, it's a no-brainer. Davao, I'm sure those of you in real estate know how prices in Davao sometimes already reached levels of Metro Manila and Cagayan de Oro. So those are the two areas where real estate will be very attractive. Now, I think so that we can have an open forum. I expect you to read the rest of the PowerPoint. Anyway, they've been covered already by Peter. Most of the data I'm presenting are like his data. Let me now just end by saying that in real estate, during the pandemic, the sector that did not suffer very much, thanks once again to the overseas workers, more than 10 million of them, and to the BPO IT workers, 1.4 million of them, are the sectors that you refer to as economic housing and low-cost housing. Any unit, whether detached or in condominium, that is priced at 1 to 5 million. So the types of DMCI homes, SMDC, so all these types of housing that are within this 1 to 5 million pricing range, they actually did not suffer very much and will definitely recover much faster than the very expensive units. 10, 20 million. In fact, I'm sure many of you know, again, you can tell me because you're the ones who are experts there. There are a lot of very expensive units, even in places like Las Marinas, in Forbes Park, that are not moving at all. In fact, there are a lot of empty homes there because of the disappearance of the Chinese in the Pogo industry. And I don't think that will recover as much as it was at the level before the pandemic. And so high-priced units will recover slowly. It will take probably another 3 years. But I don't see a sudden crisis of people selling their units and bringing the prices down. Why? Because the owners of these Dasmariñas, Forbes Park, etc., are super rich. They can afford to keep these units even if they're empty, and they will just wait for the next cycle. So I don't see a collapse, but definitely you will not see a very bullish market at the level of expensive units in housing. Okay, I think I've said enough. I'm sure Peter and I will be very glad to respond to your questions.
Tinuturing po natin na bagong bayani ang ating mga OFW or Overseas Filipino Workers. Ang remittances na pumapasok sa ating bansa kada taon ay maabot ng 211.9 billion pesos noong 2019 mula sa ating mga mahal na OFWs. Ngunit kahit maganda ang hangarin sa pag-alis ng bansa, marami pa rin po ang nakararanas ng human trafficking. 10 million po ang Pilipinong biktima ng human trafficking, maging lalaki, babae at mga kabataan. Ito po ay kumikita na 150 billion US dollars para sa mga human trafficking perpetrators. Ang OFW Party List po ay inyong masasandalan sa panahon ng pangangailangan, ang inyong kapatid, kakampi at kaibigan sa lahat ng mga manggagawang Pilipino sa buong mundo. Number 49, OFW Party List. Ito po ang inyong ate Marisa Dalmar.
In life, we are always in search of something better. Better jobs, better lifestyle, better investments. Here at Forest Lake, we offer you an alternative, an extraordinary, and a better experience through My Forest Lake portal. Our online portal gives you access to viewing and purchasing of memorial lots safely and conveniently from your home. It provides a place where you can centralize the management of your memorial lot investments with easy access to customer information and services. Registering in My Forest Lake is easy. Just follow these 3 easy steps. Creating a new account is simple. Go to www.forestlakememorialparks.com. Click on Customers on the upper right corner of the site and you will be directed to the My Forest Lake customer portal. Step 1. Click the link and fill out the form or register using your Facebook account by simply clicking on Login with Facebook. Step 2. Input necessary details as needed. And click Next. Step 3. Verify your mobile phone or registered email. Congratulations! You have successfully registered your account. Enjoy a faster, easier, and more secure way of managing your Forest Lake investment at the palm of your hands. View and purchase lots within the safety and comfort of your home. Take advantage of online services exclusive to registered customers. No more long lines when paying your dues. You can now pay through our secure payment options and documented online transactions. You can even chat with our customer service representatives for any concerns. Convenient, right? For inquiries, email us at customerportal@forestlakeparks.com or contact our branch office. Sign up now and start enjoying a better online experience now with Forest Lake. Visit www.forestlakememorialparks.com or follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Sign up today and start your investment journey with Forest Lake.
Thanks again to our sponsor. And thank you, Dr. Villegas, for presenting a strong evidence of economic growth of Architect Arman Eugene de Guzman, UAP National President. Good morning, sir. And finally, forum. So this is our chance. Architect Maria Solde Prado, for their bio. Architect Maria Solde Flores Prado is an architect and an urban planner. Graduated Bachelor of Science in Architecture, University of Santo Tomas, and also took masters in urban and regional planning in the University of the Philippines, 1999. So she has a 28 years background on horizontal and vertical development, which has given her good insights on the relevance of business on development, maybe on government projects or private firms. This includes from micro to macro planning, encompassing the growth of the city given a new project or development in an area. She has handled residential, commercial, institutional, recreational, resort development, and a bit of industrial from concept to permit plans and implementation. She have handled legal defense of any planned projects for council approval and have presented plans and programs to some select government officials from barangay level to national president. To summarize her experience, 12 years in design consultancy and 16 years in design management for developers. Mr. Jovi Francis Tupas graduated with a BS in Industrial Engineering degree at UP Diliman. He joined the Field Estate Group of Companies in 1995 as an organization development specialist and TQM-preneur, where his eyes were open to various opportunities of the real estate industry. 25 years after that, he's still actively involved as a PRC licensed real estate broker, appraiser, consultant, and accredited real estate lecturer and BSREM instructor. He was the Secretary General, Treasurer, Vice Chairman of Education, Corporate Treasurer, Secretary General. For today, here is our current NREA VP for Internal Affairs. May I call on Mr. Joey Tupas and Architect Maria Isolde Prado as the moderators.
Good morning, Andrea. Good morning to my partner, Architect Sol.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thank you. Super thanks to the well-presented materials of Dr. Bernardo Villegas and Mr. Peter Wallace. It seems that based on the facts and figures presented, it seems that the Philippines recovery is for rebound in 2022, but with, should I say, cautious optimism. So,
Yes,
having said that, let's move on.
Yes, Architect Sol. So, ang ganda-ganda ng mga pinagsasabi nila, nila Mr. Peter Wallace and ni Doc Bernie Villegas, parang bigla akong napasaya, napangiti during this Valentine. So, aside from full of love tayo, medyo full of love rin yung ating mga news and reports. And then, maybe we can start our questions right now. Architect Sol.
Yes, I'll take it from there. Let's start with a question for Mr. Peter Wallace. Many economic observers say that among the key concerns for the next administration is to give priority attention to restore the dynamism of the country's economy. What is your take on this?
I definitely agree. We now have to recover from COVID and get back on track. And as Bernie and I have said, with the right president, and even almost without him, we are looking at least a 6% recovery growth and possibly more if we get the right president. We've got, as Bernie said, the right foundations. Everything has been put in place in the last 30 years to give us the strength to move ahead. But we've got to have a president who gives us the confidence to invest, to build our businesses, and work with us to making it successful. What we have to do, as I said, and this is very important, is the continuity of what we've already achieved. The worst thing we can do is go back to a protectionist stance, to think of Filipino first rather than opening up to the world. If we do that, Filipinos will be last. Very important that we continue to maintain an open economy, an open environment, and even more so as we move forward. I'd very much like to see each of the presidential candidates, in fact, announce who their economic team is going to be before they even take up the presidency. If they could tell us now, it could give us a lot of reassurance, I think, in what we can expect into the future.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Peter Wallace. Now, I would like to ask naman si Dr. Bernie Villegas with this question. Dr. Villegas, you mentioned kanina, sir, yung about the build of the Philippines being in a promising position for growth, and hopefully our children would no longer need to go abroad to experience that so-called comfortable life that our forefathers used to dream of. With regards to NEDA's ambition natin 2040, Do you see this as becoming a reality, or fingers crossed, do you think this can happen, or can we attain this one by earlier, maybe 2030?
Well, thank you very much for answering that. In fact, I have written a lot about Ambition 2040, and in order to more or less make it jibe with the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, I even moved it up to 2050. Yes, the Ambition 2040 of NEDA is achievable, and we are actually on the way to achieving it. And as long as we now address in the next administration and beyond the next administration, the number one problem, as Peter already mentioned, is our lack of agricultural productivity. And there are a lot of things that can be done. In fact, I see the President Secretary of Agriculture already laying the foundation for some of these long-term solutions to agricultural productivity. So that's number one requirement, that we make sure that we learn from some of the lessons from Thailand, from, for example, Vietnam. It's amazing. If you take a look at Vietnam, 10 years ago, they were not a force in coffee export, but their government was very enlightened. They gave all the supporters, small farmers, to improve their productivity in coffee production. Do you know that in less than a decade, Vietnam has become the second largest exporter of coffee in the world after Brazil? They have replaced Colombia. And there are a lot of things we can learn from our neighbors. Malaysia, for example, has done so well in helping their small farmers consolidate their small farms into bigger tracts of land, partnering with large corporations to go into palm oil production. And because of that very enlightened policy of a partnership between the small farmers and a large corporation, Malaysia has become the number one exporter of palm oil. And a lot of these things can be actually also done in the Philippines, as long as our future leaders will address, for example, the failures of agrarian reform in the past. And one of them is precisely to reconsolidate all of those small holdings. We don't have to take the land away from the farmers. They can lease their land to a large corporation, and it has been done already in bananas and in pineapples. It can be done in dozens of other high-value crops, cacao, coffee, mangoes, name it. And we have the competitive advantage of land and climate to be able to do these things now. And the second challenge to the next administration and beyond is to address our situation of being very poor in basic education. Our pupils at that level do the worst in international tests, as you have read. We have to invest a lot more in paying our teachers higher salaries, in providing our public schools better resources, including internet connections. Because I see hybrid learning to be a permanent part of education. Yes, we will go back to the classroom, but there will always be part of education that will be done online. And that requires a lot of focus on education. So those are the two major challenges that the next administration and beyond will have to face. And we can reach Ambition 240 if we do those two things.
Thank you very much, Dr. Villegas.
That's it.
Next one.
Yes. So it's focusing on agriculture and education. Just how about focusing on OFW, also to Mr. Dr. Villegas? In a recent press report, you were also quoted as saying that OFW remittances will continue to be a major source of purchasing power in the Philippines. In your view, how will this impact the real estate and property sectors?
Well, as I said, thanks to the demand of OFW families, they're the ones who can afford to provide their families those economic and low-cost housing that have not suffered too much from the pandemic. And let me say, that even if we become an upper middle income economy, the demand for Filipino workers is so large that using their freedom to act, a lot of Filipinos will still go abroad, even if they have already a good life here, because the demand for them in health services, in all types of professions will be so high that we cannot compete with the incomes that they will be getting in Spain, in Germany, and I expect even China to start getting a lot of our health workers in the future, teachers in English. So that's why I think it's permanent. It's no longer related to our poverty. It's now related to the global situation in which there's a tremendous shortage of all types of workers, and we're the only ones really who can provide for some of these demands. So I'm no longer thinking of overseas workers as a solution to poverty as happened in the 1990s. Now it's already a part of a Filipino way of life, that many Filipinos will use their freedom to choose to live somewhere else. And I don't consider them unpatriotic. No. I don't think that we should have the judgment that they're just using the freedom of every individual to decide where his or her family will live in the world.
Bernie, I think one thing we need to watch, I was reading about it the other day, we're at risk of losing a lot of our seafarers into the international market because the quality of our schools is deteriorating considerably.
Yes.
And I think we were only given a few days, in fact, to meet some international standards on this. And I think our seafarers are something like a third of the total seafarers in the world today. We've been one of the most successful.
Yes.
And the same thing occurs in elsewhere, in healthcare, for example, our nurses, etc. Are we maintaining the standards that the international world will need? So education, again, becomes a major issue here.
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Villegas. Let me ask Mr. Peter Wallace. Sir, since you're a member of the Ease of Doing Business and the Anti-Red Tape Council, I'll just give you an open-ended question. How is it doing so far for our country? Are we in line with really doing business easily?
You know, as you know, I've been on the advisory council since its beginning, and I've been very impressed with Mai Belhika and his team. They've done an incredible job with a relatively small, only about 150 staff, of bringing into government the need to digitize, streamline, and speed up processes. It's now established that all permits, all licenses must be accomplished in 3 days if simple, 7 days if a bit more complex, and 20 days if very complex. And ARTA has been meeting with the different agencies, the FDA, SEC, customs, quarantine, etc., to help them put in place these different systems to now work quickly and smoothly. So you only have one permit to fill in. You have no more than 3 signatures to do. It can all be done online. We've got a long way to go yet, but the progress has been good. One of our problems is LGUs, because much of what has to be done is local permits, local requirements, etc. And these vary from LGU to LGU. Different governments have different processes, have different capabilities. The more advanced ones like Quezon City, Valenzuela, etc., they're well ahead. They've already got systems well established and in place. A number of the others, though, don't and really do need a lot of help. And ARTA has stepped in here as well by providing harmonized systems and processes that they can adopt and take forward. So I think we're moving very well. What ARTA has done is sign a number of joint memorandum agreements on how to work together, how to improve things. And also, we have identified areas where it hasn't worked. Complaints have come into us. I forget the exact number now. I think several hundred now. Complaints of people not meeting the legal requirement, government officers not meeting the legal requirement to process in the required times, etc. Only one case has gone to court out of all the hundreds that have been filed. So the Department of Justice is letting us down quite badly on this. But overall, we are seeing considerable improvement. One thing I think that I might mention is you're interested in what's happening on real estate and on the Strategic Investment Priority Plan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is now in process. It's the 2020 Investment Priority Plan has a transitional strategic investment plan for mass housing. And it has the following requirements. The selling price of each housing unit got to be between 450,000 and 2 million pesos. The project must be outside of the NCR. It must consist of a minimum of 20 livable dwelling units in a single site or in a single building. It must be new or expanding economic low-cost housing project that goes with it. For residential condominium projects, at least 51% of the total gross floor area must be devoted to housing units. And it must comply with the 15% socialized housing requirement in any development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Architect Sol?
Sorry?
Architect Sol?
Hi. Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Peter Wallace.
Yeah.
Maybe we can have one more last question from maybe one of our advisors.
Yes, maybe call on if Architect Palafox, you have any questions that you would like to raise.
Maybe both our panelists can answer Architect Palafox's question. Go, sir.
Thank you for the insights. Very
The
informative
answer, yes.
and very.
Hi, June.
Hi,
June,
Bernie
good to
and
see you.
Peter. It's always so
Hi.
nice to hear from you. And
Hi, June.
hi, Peter. Nice to see you again.
You too.
You know,
Been a
it's so
while.
inspiring to listen to you guys with all so many. But my schoolmate in the seminary said, Father Jerry Orbus, there are so many mega stars during the pandemic, negative stars. But anyway, do you agree with me that the Philippines should be an international hub? What Dr. Bernie is saying, our strategic location. It's no wonder Spanish Europe, Philippines was there, Asia Pacific hub. The Americans, the British, all superpower countries will all be interested in our country because of strategic location. I said the many advantages. I helped plan Dubai. I was invited and named her to bring Dubai into the first world in 15 years. They were able to do it. And we are number 4 in gold. Dubai is re-exporting more gold than we do. Dubai is exporting orchids. They don't have all of them. They re-export. So I think we have a high potential to make the Philippines as international hub. We are 400 times the size of Singapore, 350 times Hong Kong, 8 times Taiwan, and 3 times South Korea. South Korea and United Arab Emirates are about the size of Mindanao. What's your take on that? And I believe we can be in the first role by 2030, but Dr. Bernie said maybe 2035, 2040. Thank you.
Bernie, would you like to go first?
Let me, yes. You know,
Age before beauty.
there is, yes, there is
Our
now,
mentor. Our
there is
mentor.
now a creative industry council of the Philippines,
Oh, yeah.
putting together all the industries that make use of the well-known Filipino creativity. And June is one of those creative people. Architecture is a creative profession. And definitely, the Philippines can be a hub for all types of creative industries, starting with music, with painting, and so on and so forth. You have Filipinos excelling in international competitions in anything that have to do with creative talents. And that is why I think there's a bill right now in the lower house somehow preparing for incentives for our artists. And, you know, South Korea has dominated the world. You know, the boys groups, girls groups, and so on and so forth. But person to person, we are more talented than the Koreans. Why do the Koreans excel? Because their government invests a lot. You know, there are actually camps where they have hundreds and hundreds of boy singers that they treat like military soldiers, and they train them in dancing and so on and so forth. And that's why they can really conquer the world, no? In terms of music, in terms of drama, and so on and so forth. Our problem is we're not organized, but talent for talent, we have more than many of these Asian countries. And I do believe that one of the areas where we will excel when we become first world will be in the creative industry. But again, here, you need a close cooperation between the government and the private sector, somehow learning from the South Korean model.
Thank you.
I agree with Bernie on that entirely. You know, there used to be, I don't know if there has been because of COVID, there used to be an annual exhibition of handicrafts for exporters down at the World Trade Center. And the quality of stuff and the imagination of it was just remarkable. I mean, it was really beautiful stuff, very well made, very well constructed. There's no question that we have a tremendous artistic talent. You know, my wife has told me if I ever sing, she will divorce me. You can't say that of any Filipino. They can all sing. God knows how, but they all can. You have a remarkable talent. But we need to take this forward now into the IT arena, because that's another area where a lot of animation, imagination, thinking has to occur, where we can be just as good as on the physical side, we can be on the virtual side. So I'd like to see, and again, we go back to the same basic thing, education. The more I think about it, the more I think that the educational system is the very foundation of our society, and we've let it down badly. It used to, you know, we keep saying, as Bernie did, you know, we're an English-speaking country. No, we're not. We were. My wife went to school, it was English that she learnt in. Today, it's the local dialect. We've let it down, and we shouldn't give up on our local languages, definitely not. It's important that we maintain those, but English must be revived back to the second language that it used to be, so that we are all familiar with it. The world speaks English. Maybe in 2040 it'll be speaking Chinese, but it's speaking English now. And we need to be doing that as well.
Yeah, thank you. May I share something? Yeah. Of course, many hotels are closing down. We're designing 5 hotels. La Union, Bohol, Boracay, and also Palawan. And also designing office buildings. And these are contrarians, just like 1983, where we're demonstrating at EDSA. Henry C. Gokongwei and Robert Koch of Shangri-La were buying properties at 2,000 pesos per square meter. So these are the contrarians. And these contrarian clients that I have right now, they feel by 2024, 2025, they can hit the ground running. Thank you.
Yep, agreed.
Thank you very much, Architect June Palafox, for that contribution. Architect Sol, where are we in the program right now? Medyo overtime tayo.
Now we are 12.
Very interesting.
But
due to our creative desk, so many answers.
Yeah, so again, I would like to thank our
before we finish,
yes,
may I just make a final comment on education?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay.
One challenge in education is we must get rid of the obsession of parents and students with a college diploma. You probably just read a study done by PIDS, the think tank of NEDA, that 40% our workers are overeducated. Actually, I think miseducated. They should have not followed a 4-year Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Arts. They should have taken courses that provide skills immediately, whether it be in the animation, in game development, not to mention becoming plumbers, carpenters, and so a tremendous shortage. Forget the degree. And that's where probably the private sector should lead in offering a lot of upskilling, reskilling, retooling courses which do not involve college degrees for our workers. In fact, in the meeting yesterday, Miguel Del Rosario, who's very much involved in animation, says the majority of their people who are very good in animation don't have college degrees. They just have innate talents and that are actually cultivated by short courses on animation. And you can do that in so many technical fields. I think we were wrong in following the US model of getting practically all of our youth, whether poor or rich, to want to get a college diploma. The European model for a long time, most of the young people did not go to the universities. They went to technical schools and acquired technical skills. And I think you people in real estate can do something because you also are very much involved with construction and there's a tremendous shortage precisely of construction workers.
Yep.
And some of you,
Yes, and
yes.
Including for overseas, Bernie, tremendous demand for handymen, carpenters, welders, plumbers, people who can help around the house because most Western men can't.
Exactly. And butchers for Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would also like to get the final words from Mr. Peter Wallace.
Well, I don't think I think we've pretty much covered everything. But I think what it comes down to is that we are moving into a transition this year that will take us forward for the next 6 years directly, and then through to 2040, as Bernie has raised, into the future. And it's that long-term future we've got to plan for now. I think one of our biggest weaknesses is we've always had a 6-year government and they think 6-year terms. They don't think the long term. And so I'm very pleased to see that Bernie is talking 2040. That's the kind of time frame we need to be talking. And we have to be planning for that and having a continuity from government to government to achieve that. Now, how we achieve that in political terms, I'm not sure. Politicians tend not to think in that long term. They think only of how do I get re-elected 3 or 6 years from now. So perhaps we have to become more active in doing the thinking for them on the long term. I think a well-conceived long-term plan for the government would be a very valuable thing to have. And I think Bernie could be a person who could lead in developing that to great benefit of the country.
Again,
thank you.
Thank you very much again to our speakers, Dr. Bernardo Villegas and Mr. Peter Wallace. Please stay for a while. We'll just have a short reminders from our sponsors and then we'll proceed with the awarding of certificates.
Visualizing your space has never been easier. With a personal studio that fits right in your pocket. Experience the magic of transforming your spaces in just a few taps. Share the excitement. Make your dream space a reality. Express your creativity with the Davis Color Studio app. Download now.
Tinuturing po natin na bagong bayani ang ating mga OFW or Overseas Filipino Workers. Ang remittances na pumapasok sa ating bansa kada taon ay maabot ng 211.9 billion pesos noong 2019 mula sa ating mga mahal na OFWs. Ngunit kahit maganda ang hangarin sa pag-alis ng bansa, marami pa rin po ang nakararanas ng human trafficking. 10 million po ang Pilipinong biktima ng human trafficking, maging lalaki, babae at mga kabataan. Ito po ay kumikita na 150 billion US dollars para sa mga human trafficking perpetrators. Ang OFW Party List po ay inyong masasandalan sa panahon ng pangangailangan, ang inyong kapatid, kakampi at kaibigan sa lahat ng mga manggagawang Pilipino sa buong mundo. Number 49, OFW Party List. Ito po ang inyong ate Marisa Dalmar.
Again, thank you very much to our distinguished guests and speaker, Mr. Peter Wallace and Dr. Bernardo Villegas. Thank you to our generous sponsors. And we again invite the non-members to join NREA for we have a year-round activities. May I call on Architect Sol Prado to announce the events for March.
For March 16, next business forum, we are looking forward to three items for discussion: revised housing price ceilings and building standards, the preparation of anti-money laundering prevention program, and next slide, please. A BIR updates on taxation of real estate and practitioners. So we will update you on this, and most probably it will be on March 16. Please put it on your calendar already. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Sol. And again, thank you to our distinguished guests. To show our appreciation, we will present the certificates. May I call on Ms. Marisa Delmar.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. Yes, first of all, I would like to present this certificate from the National Real Estate Association. The certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Mr. Peter Wallace, in his sincere appreciation of your invaluable service to the association, particularly a special guest and resource speaker during the NREA Business Forum Online 2022 Real Estate Market Overview and Trends, February 16, 2022 via Zoom and NREA Philippines FB Live. Signed by the group board chairman, Mr. Ricky M. Celis, yours truly, Chair Emerita and Chair Lady, Board of Advisors, Marisa Delmar, National President, Architect Ronnie Biando, and Secretary General, Architect Isolde Prado. Congratulations. Thank you so much, my good friend, Mr. Peter Wallace.
Thank you. Very
Yes.
nice of you. Thank
Yes.
you.
And I enjoyed our interview for our Up Close and Personal with Marisa Delmar with your wonderful wife and a very good cook. And I still remember the giant dogs in your in your rest house. Thank you, Mr. Peter. Thank you.
They're
All
lying around my feet at the moment. Three
Yes.
German shepherds. Yeah.
That's right, German Shepherds. And have
Beautiful.
a speedy recovery, my good friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. For our next certificate of appreciation, please. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Bernardo Villegas, for the tremendous recognition given to our overseas Filipino workers in their contribution, especially in the remittances that keeps our economy afloat. Thank you so much. The certificate of appreciation is given by the National Real Estate Association to Dr. Bernardo M. Villegas in sincere appreciation of your invaluable service to the association, particularly as special guest and resource speaker during the NREA Business Forum Online 2022 Real Estate Market Overview and Trends on February 16, 2022 via Zoom and NREA Philippines Facebook Live. Signed, Board Chairman, Mr. Ricky M. Salis, yours truly, Ms. Marisa Del Mar, Chair Emerita and Chair Lady, Board of Advisors, National President, Architect Ronnie Biando, and Secretary General, Architect Isolde Prado. Thank you and congratulations, Mr. Peter Wallace and Dr. Bernardo Villegas. It was such a very informative and interactive webinars with you. We, the NREA says, saludo po kami sa inyo. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to our distinguished speakers, and thank you to Miss Marisa, our chair lady of the Board of Advisors and the Chair Emerita. And to present the certificates to our moderators, may I call on Architect Grace Layu, past Chair Lady and President, and now member of the Board of Advisors.
Please allow me to present the Certificate of Appreciation from the National Real Estate Association, proudly presented to Architect Maria Isolde F. Prado in sincere appreciation of her invaluable service to the association, particularly as moderator during the NREA Business Forum Online 2022 Real Estate Market Overview and Trends on February 16, 2022, via Zoom and NREA Philippines Facebook Live. Signed by our Board Chairman, Mr. Ricky M. Celis, by our Chair Emerita and Chair Lady, Board of Advisors, Ms. Marisa Del Mar, and our National President, Architect Ronnie B. Biando.
Thank you, Architect Grace Layu, for the Certificate of Appreciation in NREA.
And allow me again to present another Certificate of Appreciation, proudly presented by the NREA, the National Real Estate Association, Inc., to Mr. Jovi Francis W. Tupas, in sincere appreciation of his invaluable service to the association, particularly as moderator during the NREA Business Forum Online 2022 Real Estate Market Overview and Trends on February 16, 2022 via Zoom and NREA Philippines Facebook Live. Signed by Mr. Ricky M. Celis, our Board Chairman, our Chair Emerita and Chair Lady, Board of Advisors, Ms. Marisa Del Mar, our National President, Architect Ronnie B. Biando, and our Secretary General, Architect Maria Isolde F. Prado.
Thank you very much, Architect Grace.
Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Grace Layu. And before we reach the end of the program, we invite everybody to turn their cameras on for the photo ops. Okay. Take it away, Ms. Lay.
Okay, first slide. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Second slide. Okay. Hindi po nakabukas ng camera yung iba. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And for the last slide po. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Great.
Thank you very much.
webinar. Thank you.
Thank you
See
so
you.
much to everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
April,
Thank you.
Bye.
good architect Sol, Trustee
Thank you.
Jovi, to everybody, VP Zenny, architect.
Thank you.
Love
Thank
you
you.
all. God bless us all.